Zoom recording. So sorry. All right. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Today's topic is how AANP gained over 1,500 members and 200K in revenue. My name is Nicole Crabtree. I'm the Director of Events for UST, and I'll be your host today. Our presenters are Brianne Wheeler and Meg Sloan of PropFuel and Liz Messner of AANP. I look forward to hearing all the knowledge they'll be sharing with us on today's topic. Like all UST Ed webinars, today's session is powered by our parent company, US Transactions. UST saves the average association $30,000 to $50,000 a year. You do not want to miss out on that. So to see how much money you can save your organization, contact our association practice leader, Julie Duncan. You are able to receive CPE or CAE credits for today's webinar. In order to do that, be sure you have your first and last name listed on your Zoom profile, or we won't know who to issue those credits to. Put your request for credits here in the chat now if you haven't already done so. We're going to be having some engagement questions throughout the webinar, and if you're requesting credits, it's necessary to answer a majority of those so we know you're here, but they're also there to facilitate discussion, so please everybody join in. Before I hand it over to our speakers, I'd like everyone to take a moment and put into the chat now what you'd like to get out of today's webinar. This one does count for credits, so be sure to answer. And as those answers come rolling in, ladies, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We got a great group today. Okay, I'm presenting from Canva today. It's my favorite. Give me 1 second.
Sure. We've got lots of great answers coming in. We've got good ideas to improve retention, best practices for growing membership. They're going by quickly. Knowing the secrets on your member recruitment. Lots of people want to know how you increase those numbers. Yes. All right.
We are going to explore today. Anything else here? Let me see in the chat. I want to grab something. Oh, Robbie wants an iPod with a never-ending battery. I love that. I think that's very good for an island. Okay, so let's see. Ideas for using PropFuel, knowing the secrets on your member recruitment. Trying to grab onto one of these before we start. How they increase membership and revenue. Yeah, I mean, the two kind of go together, right? When we're talking about recurring revenue. And I just love, this is such a great opportunity today to just share a success story that I feel like, I don't want to say it's rare, but it can feel like that when you're working so hard and you're in membership or marketing in an association and you're trying to see success and big change. And this is just a great example of it today. And so I'm with PropFuel and Brianne Wheeler. We actually had to change the title of this presentation because between the time that we started to talk about presenting this and today, the campaign was still happening. And so AANP actually grew by leaps and bounds in members and revenue since then. So the title is slightly different. Just wanted to point that out for you. So again, I'm the Director of Marketing at PropFuel, Brianne Wheeler. I see many familiar faces today, so welcome, and welcome to anybody that I haven't met before. I was an association marketer for about 10 years. I worked for the Texas Medical Association. I also worked for an AMC for multiple national healthcare associations. So while I work in software now, I am mostly an association marketer. And so I love talking about this today and being here. And typically, if you've been on with me before on a UST webinar or any webinar, I'm kind of talking to myself and to you all, but I don't have friends with me to present. So I'm super excited to be joined today by Liz and Megan. And Liz, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Liz Messner. I am a 30-year veteran of the association world, started when I was 12. I've spent the last 15 years of my career focused on membership with various large and small organizations. And so my knowledge is a culmination of both large and small staffed organizations. And I'm thrilled to share our success with you and knowledge.
Megan?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Megan Sloan. I am a client success manager here at PropFuel. I am working directly with Liz on her campaigns, but I myself have over a decade of experience working with associations. You name it, I've touched it, broke it a few times, had somebody help me fix it, and then, move forward and moved on. So I'm really excited to be here to share this story with you. It's going to be a really, really cool journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to just quickly go through the objectives of today's presentation. First, we are going to talk about the shift in thinking that AANP has undergone to change how they communicate with individuals and engage with members, and specifically how that relates to their acquisition and win backs for members. So talking really and mostly really about lapsed member win back is the focus today. Then secondly, we're going to talk about AANP's process for their current or previous campaigns, how they came to decide that they maybe needed to do something differently, and how they went about implementing a new way of engaging. And then also take a quantitative look at the campaigns that have made them a lot of money and brought back a lot of members that had disengaged, had lapsed. And this is all just during this calendar year, and really since March, April was it. So this is within 6 months time. And so that's kind of the three areas where we'll focus today. First, I want to ask all of you a question. How often do you try new tactics to win back lapsed members? So when you're looking at your campaigns and what you're doing to nurture those relationships and then get them back into the membership, how often are you trying something new? I would love to hear from you in the chat. We'll grab some of these. Quarterly. Okay, Lauren, that's really good. I feel like that's a good cadence to be trying something new every quarter. 1 to 2 times a year. Almost never. Morgan, I was thinking we would get a couple of those responses. Let's see. Stacy, if you're willing to come off mute, I'd love to hear, you said first during renewal season and then directly after renewal season. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so we usually do twice a year. So the first definitely is during renewal season and we target members who didn't renew previously. So for example, if we're in the 2023 renewal cycle for 2024, we'll reach out to all members who didn't renew in 2022 and back. Okay. And then the second renewal is after 2023, for example, for the 2024 cycle, we'll reach out to all those members again.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Nothing new. Mary Hope said, okay. No set timeline, but usually occurs around when we have events. So, okay, it's based kind of around something else that's happening in the organization, which we will talk about that today as well. Awesome. Okay, I'd love to read through these. I feel like I never have time to read through all of them, but thank you for those responses. I'm sure we can incorporate some of those throughout the conversation. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Liz, to talk about kind of the background story of how I guess you used to do things and kind of the process of getting to where you are today.
Awesome. So I came to AANP in 2021 during the pandemic. So my light bulb moment came a little over a year into my tenure here at AANP. And when I arrived, new situation, assess the new situation. I came into a renewal campaign and recruitment campaigns that were a lot the same. Recruitment was happening every month. Actually, rockstar recruiting was going on, but there was a retention challenge. And the great acquisitions were hiding the retention churn. And it was troubling me greatly that we were having retention issues. And I was trying to wrap my head. I rewrote all the communications. I slimmed them down from like 12 touch points to 8, which some of you may pass out at that. But I was looking for the next thing. What are we going to do differently to get a different outcome? Because, the definition of insanity is let's do the same thing again and hope for a different outcome. So I was at ASAE in Nashville in the summer of 2022 in the exhibit hall, where, let's face it, isn't that where all the great hallway conversations happen? So conversation was already on my mind. And I walked up and saw the PropFuel booth, and everyone was dressed in a team shirt. It looked really cool. And I struck up a conversation with Dave Will. I had no idea who Dave was. I'm just like, hey, what's going on? So we started talking about the idea of turning a conversation like we're having into an email. What if we could harness the power of what's happening in our conversation naturally and put that into an email platform? And honestly, it took me a minute to wrap my head around this. I'm like, wait, what? How do you even, is it video? How does it, what is it? And he said, well, what was the first thing you did when you walked up to me? And I asked him a question. And it just, wow, the light bulb went off that the things we do naturally in a conversation, we're observing body language, we're learning from the person who's listening to us, we're getting feedback instantly on how we're being perceived and received. And it really just boggled my mind. And I made a decision on that exhibit hall floor. I said, Dave, we're going to work together. I don't have a budget. This is off cycle. I don't exactly know how I'm going to pull it off, but I'm going to go home and get to work, and I'm bringing this tool to AANP. Or I'm going to die trying, one way or the other. So I had to understand the power of a question and the power of a new approach and new thinking to flip the switch. So this was the light bulb moment for me. This is an example of one of our, win back campaigns, right? And hey, it's attractive. It's got lots of links, and I've learned since putting something like this old think email together that I'm doing a lot of things incorrectly to be successful. So we'll talk more about that in a second, but I had to share the light bulb moment because that was the disruptive moment for me.
Yeah. And I just want to mention this too, like PropFuel is coming up as like the tool, but in general, what we want to get in across today is a different way of thinking. And Liz, I love that you said, like, I had a hard time understanding at first, like it took me a minute, because I think it does take a minute. Like typically our thinking around association communications is we start with, what do we need to get to the member? What kind of information do we need to what do we need to tell them? What do we need to get them to do? And it's often association focused because we want them to renew. We want them to come to the conference. We want them to sign up for the new educational program. We want them to be a part of the mentoring program. We want them to go onto the community. We want them to go update their member profile so we have accurate information for them, which is for them, right, to help serve them. But it comes off like kind of a dump of information.
Well, and it's so true, Brianna. And I still have the visual that Dave and I talked about that day. Think about the old-timey megaphone where you're broadcasting your message to a crowd, and it really is sort of, here's all the information. It's the fire hydrant approach. Here's everything, as opposed to engaging them and actually figuring out how to listen to your members from an email. It truly is mind-boggling to flip that switch.
Yep, absolutely. Meg, anything to add?
No, I was just, Liz hit the nail on the head with that one. It's all about listening. And when you're having a conversation, you're usually active listening. So there's a way to do that with many tools. Like you could use any tool to really do this. But this approach and, thinking differently, changing your mindset, especially when you've been doing things the same way for years and years and years, it's a difficult challenge. But once you sort of see how people are receptive to it, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Also, Liz, your audience, they're nurse practitioners. they're on the go and busy all the time. So really, really knowing your audience helps too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we think about that is a process called ask, capture, and act. So you start with asking a question around the member's needs or wants or pain points, right? So we're starting with that. We're not starting with the typical what do we need to impart onto the member. The second piece of this is capture, which this is you're capturing a new piece of information you didn't have before. This could literally be a piece of profile data that you didn't have before, or it could be something a little bit more, intent based, or based on just asking them what they think, and not just feedback like survey type feedback. It could be anything. It could be a long open-ended response. It could be, what do you intend to do about your membership next year? Really huge range of data capture that you have in this step. And then the last piece of it is kind of two parts, really. You're acting immediately to fulfill however they answered, right? So like it could be just thanks so much for your feedback, but it could also be, all right, we've got your new title in the system and you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to, but just a confirmation, right? It could also take them to more information. It could, so you're acting immediately once they respond, to give them some type of immediate value. And then you also have this new piece of data that you can go do something with long term, which can come again in various forms of to help the association understand the individual members better. Okay, Liz, so this is kind of the first campaign. And by the way, we have a case study on this that we just finished. So we can give the full case study link to you at the end of the presentation. But so this is some of the campaigns that we've covered across this year of campaigns with AANP. And so this is the first one, and this was back in the spring, right? Like April, March?
It was in the spring. So I was really anxious to get started, and I wanted to choose a campaign to start with where I could really see the difference between the old way and the new way. Mm-hmm. Not only to help me influence people internally in our marketing and communications areas to just, put an exclamation point behind the new thinking, but have a great result. So we do a campaign every year for our annual meeting, which happens in June. So about the March timeframe, we do a sweepstakes. So if you join us during this window of time, you're entered to win an all expense paid trip to our national conference. And we keep it simple. It's just a complimentary registration and a travel stipend. And we've done this campaign year over year, and this is the way it looked the old way. Actually, this original email was crafted for when we were going to have a meeting during the pandemic and had to retool it, but it was very much the exact same email, was the plan. And I thought, I want to flip the switch on this campaign. This is going to be the first one. And I wanted to do it so badly. We weren't even integrated yet. I did this from a static list. I was like, we are going to do this no matter what. So I got a static list. We uploaded it into PropFuel, and Megan helped us do the campaign. But I will say the sweepstakes campaign was considered successful internally here at AANP. And as you can see, it's copy heavy. It's got lots of links. Do we really want them to join? The first link is to register for the conference. So we're confusing them from the get-go, but this is our fire hydrant megaphone approach of tell them everything. Put the giant header in that takes up 2/3 of the email when most of your readers are reading this on a mobile device, right? So just pointing out some of the things I've learned, when we know better, we can do better. And that's what this is all about today.
Yeah, and I'm glad you just pointed those elements out, because it's just, I think, immediately overwhelming. It's a lot of information. And as we all know, there are very small windows of attention that we have when we communicate. If a member even opens an email, if we're lucky enough for them to open it, they have, I forget what it is. I think it's like 2 seconds or something to get their attention. And this look like I might pass this one by because it's just like, it's too much. Right. And so to the point of your audience too, knowing your audience, there are some member organizations where people, the profession is very detail oriented, and in some ways they might appreciate detail, right? Communicated. However, it's still it's just an attention thing. It's like you have to do something quick to get their attention, to interrupt. And I think what's even more important is interrupting the pattern of what things typically look like. So if this,
Hey, Brianne,
yeah,
I wanted to shout out to Kim in the chat who's saying, if you're feeling uncomfortable because your emails look like this, hey, we're all in the same club. Okay. I still have emails that look like this. We haven't converted everything. So please, no one feel any shade or shame here.
No.
We are all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I wanted to point out too, in this email, there's like many call to actions. And so just like Bree said, like the user doesn't know what to do. So when you are converting this into a conversation, you kind of want to think big picture, what is my goal? And so the goal was to get them to join. So that's what we focused on. And then entering the sweepstakes was sort of like built into that. So we kind of reframed our language, and you'll see here in just a minute, but also, if you take a look to analyze what you're currently doing, you can also take that step back. What is that ultimate goal, to then parse it down to a conversation?
Yeah, a couple other things awesome, Megan. Thank you for adding that. And the couple other things that I wanted to point out in this chat, Allison, so interrupting the pattern. Yes. So that is actually, it's a concept called pattern interrupt. And so just look it up. It's actually, it's been studied, and it's about what our brains do and how we attract attention. And again, when everything looks the same, we start to tune it out over time. I was totally guilty of this at my previous associations. I mean, you should have seen the communications. I can probably find some from back in the day, but yeah, I'm totally guilty too. Renee, you have a question here. How do you balance hyper-focused emails with the number of messages sent per week and day? Yes. So that is precisely the point. The way that and I think everybody on this call today thinks about this is, the more you know, the less you have to send. So one of our owners, Cameron, said a long time ago, like, nobody ever deleted an email from their mother and didn't read it, right? Because it's relevant to them, highly relevant. And so it's really less about we're sending too many emails, and it's more about we're sending too many irrelevant emails. I truly believe that. There are things that I'm interested in that I will open every single one of them because I know it's going to add value. So that's a, I guess, conceptual answer to the question, Renee. But logistically speaking, the more that you know, and by asking questions, you find out more over time. The idea is that you are sending less over time, because, for example, if you know somebody is not intending to attend your annual conference this year, then you can stop sending them the annual conference emails, right? So that's kind of the solution to that challenge. Okay, so let's move forward here. So this is in contrast. Liz, take it away on what you did here. And Meg.
So working hand in hand with, the expert Megan, we really did flip the switch. So we had a conversational approach. If I was going to approach someone in the hallway and say, hey, are you going to this conference? That would be the question, right? Or here's the deal. We wanted this to be focused on joining. Are you ready to join us and have a chance to win? It's join us first. So we combined the messages and really made it clear where they fell so that we could properly follow up with them. Some needed nurturing. If they're on the fence, that's when you go to work on the sales pitch. You don't start with the big sales pitch with the fire hydrant approach. You find out who really needs that. That way you're not wasting everyone's time. And it's so smart. It's mini surveying in here, right? And then talking directly to the people that want to hear from you because they're going to open the next email, right? And the other thing I found out about my audience early on is they are highly, highly deadline sensitive. They're a frugal group. They love a discount and they love that subject line of it's your last chance to participate. So you've got to know what works with your members and know enough about them to segment them correctly so that you're getting the right message to the right people. But it really revolutionized. And we certainly gained a couple of hundred more members from this campaign, the new way than the old way. So without question, it showed me that the people that I need to listen to me are listening to me when I engage them this way. It's more thoughtful, respectful, and I feel you on the pressure to make every email count. So I shouldn't do a single subject email. I should do this, 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 and this, and that condenses down to 1 from 3. However, if they don't open it and read it, you've lost before you've even really come out of the starting gate. So I would encourage you to resist that urge. And it may be an uphill climb internally for you on that for a little while until you can prove that it does work, this new thinking. And I would encourage you to swim upstream, just commit and do it because it will pay off the being more, I guess, thoughtful of your recipients.
And just a couple of tips here. If you haven't noticed, you don't see any hyperlinks in this email. So it's very clean and not overwhelming. Even though the buttons are hyperlinked, it's not like messy or like stabbing you in the eyes with hyperlinks. And another thing is since this was their first campaign that they did through PropFuel, we did keep it a little bit text heavy because we got to ease into this conversational approach and get buy-in from the rest of the team to understand this. So what we did was we broke the text apart. So we brought that call to action above the fold. So it caught their eye, caught their attention, and they can easily click in their phone, iPad, whatever they're using, and get that information then what they needed. And again, like Liz said, we also nurtured. So we captured the intent of people who said, tell me more, or yes, I'm interested, but then didn't take action. And then we caught up with them right before our promotion ended and said, hey, you let us know you were interested, but you didn't take action. How can I help you? So lots of different ways. Just by listening, engaging them, capturing that data, you can then take further action.
And so you pointed out the buttons linked here. So I want to make a distinction there. So typically when you'd have like something that looks like this and you had a stack of options, these would all simply go to a different landing page, right? So they would be like hyperlinked buttons. This is different. So every single option here has a different set of actions that can be tied to it. So for example, the membership didn't meet my expectations. That's a red flag going off that those are the people you need to get on the phone with. So rather than calling everybody on the list that has not joined, you're calling the people who said, I'm not satisfied with this. I don't see value. And you can then go do something about it. And so just a note, like on the technical side of things, there's a way to, in PropFuel at least, to alert a staff person to go contact them. So every one of these has a different set of actions tied to them and it's not just like a link out to more information, which makes this more conversational and more personalized automatically, just because they're getting something delivered to them or getting into potentially a one-on-one interaction that couldn't have happened in a typical communication like this that's broadcast style. Let me see what we have on the chat here before we move forward. Oh, Megan is the best. Yes, she is. Okay. And by the way, Diane is on video. Hi, Diane. So Diane and I sat next to each other last Thursday. We were at Non-Duzapalooza in Denver. Awesome conference. And so I'm happy to see your face. Thank you for being on. So, okay, this is flip the script. This is, you've heard Liz say this a couple of times today. I just want to reiterate, this is the flip in thinking, where instead of asking, what do we need to tell members? We're first asking, what don't we know that would help us learn more in order to get the outcome that we're intending? And then find out, what should we ask? And that maybe seems complex, difficult, but it's simple if you come at it from this direction, because a lot of the time it's like, okay, well, if we're going to ask questions, what do we ask? Well, there's a process there, and it's this, right? It's like, what don't we know that we could find out that would give us more information that would get us to where we're trying to go? And, benefit members, of course, is the end result there. So Jessica, quick question here. If the button doesn't link to a landing page, what happens next for the member? So it's going to go somewhere. So it'll either go to a landing page, you'll get what you wanted delivered to you. For example, if it's, do you want to get your copy of this educational piece, whatever it is. So there's going to be somewhere to take you. But in addition to that, there are other options for what we can do with that information, where we can send it. We can send it back to your AMS. Many options there. So just to compare these two campaigns, we had this Ask, Capture, Act, this conversational method outperformed the traditional campaign and marketing automation. There was 560 members versus the 444 in the previous campaign. And as you can see, there's a $17,000 increase in revenue. I mean, those are real numbers there. Huge difference in outcome for the same effort, right? About the same effort. I guess you could argue that copying the email from last year is low effort, but you're also getting a lower result from it, right?
What I do is to be less disruptive internally and to me and my team. What I do is I take an existing email that we've used before, and then we revolutionize it, right? We change the copy. If you've got something to start with, don't feel like you have to start from scratch, right? Start with what you have, because most of what's in your initial email end up being the nurturing parts. You've got to just add in the questions up front, and then you've already written them more information that they need based on what they tell you initially. So start with what you've had previously. That's what we've done.
Great point. Great point. So I think the key points here, aside from the increase in revenue, the user experience was improved, right? That's a better interaction than the previous one. Just more simple, easier, very clear and to the point. You have new data that you didn't have before, and new opportunity to engage in various ways, as we were just talking about. And the results came more quickly, right? This was only 2 weeks we saw these results versus the campaign that dragged on. It kind of reminds me of when you're doing a call for presentations, where you're like, okay, well, we're just going to extend it because we don't have enough yet, right? It's kind of like, oh, the campaign's extended, and let's add 2 more weeks. That's not necessary here, right? Okay, let's go back to you all. So I just want to stop there. I'm sure your juices are kind of flowing now, and you're thinking about things as it relates to engagement. So if you will, in the chat, tell us, what engagement challenges are you facing currently? Like, is it lapsed member win back? Is it new member acquisition? Is it getting people to your event? Is it the new educational product that you spent like $1 million developing and nobody's buying it? Like, what is the challenge? Or even exhibitor sponsor, non-dues engagement. So many options there. I'd love to hear. New member onboarding and acquisition, a lot of that. People to events. Okay. Tiffany, if you wouldn't mind, so you said how to store, save, and track engagement data to use later. Will you comment on that a little bit?
Happily, hopefully you all can hear me.
Yep.
I think we're at the point now where we certainly understand the significance of tracking this information. We want to use this information, but then I feel like it's like, oh, all right, where do we put it in the database? How do we get our database to where we need it to be so that we have space for this and there's a consistent way to save this across all members and that sort of thing. That's always kind of the mini hurdle that we're facing now. Not so many, I guess, but yeah, more or less, that's it.
So that's a really great point, because having enough data is not quite the problem, right? Like, you have a ton of data. It's just maybe not accurate and maybe not useful and not easily usable, right? So I think that's what this approach offers is, yes, you can get new data to capture it for later on, but the immediate opportunity for someone to give you some new information and to be able to act on it immediately is rare. And that's something that you can't do in a survey, right? So like in a survey, you get data, you get a lot of data, but then it might be organized in a report, or it might be, 3-4 months later before the board looks at it. And by that time, any frustrations, any dissatisfaction, any great feedback or information that you would have gotten is kind of old, right? So this approach gives you the opportunity to act on the new data immediately and without having to do it in a manual way. Okay, let me see here. Anything else standing out to you all in the chat that we can?
Seeing a lot of like just recapturing members, retaining members, things to just nurture them along the way. Yeah. It's kind of like the full member life cycle. Everybody sort of needs a little bit of help in every area, but.
Yeah. And I see a lot of new member recruitment, student engagement. A note on that. I think that if you're adding value and understanding, especially students who are younger and communicate differently and are like not necessarily younger, but maybe younger earlier in their career, it's incredibly important to ask them questions and find out why they're even there, what they need, because what they need might be completely different from what a seasoned person in your organization needs. And I think we do this in some ways with, again, surveys or in general buckets of like, okay, you need education or you need resources to get a job, but specifically within a semester of school or whatever their time frame may be, they might have certain needs that you can help with, and you just have to surface them. Right. So I think it's a great opportunity for students and new member acquisition. Okay, so many awesome items in the chat here. So I want to move forward. This is the second campaign, which just ended, last week? It was last week, right? So when we started talking about this webinar and wanting to talk about the other campaign that we just covered, AANP was in the middle of this second campaign to get lapsed members to rejoin. And that's what I was saying earlier about we had to end up changing the title because they just kept bringing in more members. So Liz, take it away on this campaign.
So as I said earlier, our annual conference is in June, and towards the end of summer, we typically have a seasonal lull in our membership. So we wanted to do a pure win-back campaign, and we're very lucky that we have good data on our former members. So we went back, I think 2.5 years, January 2021, that was our target audience. And y'all, that was like 80,000 people. Our total membership is 120,000, now 121,000 plus, but we're a large organization. So that's about 80,000 people that we were working with. but pure win back. That was the goal. And when you do a win back, it's really important to track your results because it can indicate that you've got a value proposition perception problem. If you can't win back a certain amount, your members don't understand your value proposition, and you've got kind of a bigger nut to crack there. But, nurse practitioners are busy, right? They may just not know. So we wanted to just ask a simple question. Hey, we noticed you lapsed. Do you want to come back? And keep it simple up front. We didn't want to go with a big sales pitch. That's the old thinking, right? Of here's the 3 top benefits you're missing out on. Like, I've written 1,000 of those emails in my career. And now I'm just like lamenting, well, wow, no wonder they weren't quite as successful. I just need to ask and give the recipient the benefit of the doubt that this may be an accident that they're lapsed. They may understand the value. So let's start with, hey, would you like to rejoin us? Yes, maybe, or no. We kept the options very simple so we could nurture, the yes people. We sent them an email in their email box right there. Don't forget to act. Maybe tell me more. Well, that's where we started with the benefits. Here's what you're missing. And then no thanks. Hey, we're not going to bother you anymore, except would you tell me why?
Yeah.
But keeping it simple.
And the why on the nose to me is the most important, because now instead of sitting around the boardroom and going, how come, why? Like, maybe we should do another survey and find out. But like, instead of that, you're finding out at the point of them telling you, I'm not going to give you more money and rejoin. And so I know this is, I guess, not uncommon. I know there are a lot of lapsed member surveys, but for some reason this feels different. It's like it's so simple and to the point, and you're just getting them to answer a simple question, and then you can go from there. So this was incredibly successful. You ended up with almost 1,200 new members, totaling over $126,000 in dues. So crazy successful campaign. And this, as a marketer, membership person, this is gold to me. One of your IT developers, who IT does not typically take notice of membership campaigns, but he said, I regularly monitor these orders and noticed, a huge order came in, like it was maybe something was wrong, right? But in a good way. It was like such a good problem to have. Like, what's going on here? So they had 95 in an hour last week, single biggest orders he's ever seen. So that I just love this, because again, like, IT is typically not taking note of membership successes. So Liz and Megan, why don't you share what's next now that you've covered the membership lapsed campaigns? What else are you working on? What's coming up?
Well, the urge to do everything at once is really strong, right? But we're having to prioritize. So we are working on segmenting our student members. We have been speaking with the same voice to all types of our memberships and not segmenting. So students were getting the same messaging as nurse practitioners. So we think this platform is especially, and this approach is especially advantageous for students. So we are going to build an onboarding campaign and a renewal campaign that has some touch points in this platform with this approach of asking questions. So that's really, top of mind. And one by one, I'm going to move all of our recruiting campaigns into this mindset, this approach, this tool, because the results are just phenomenal. We are being very thoughtful about our messaging. So we're, a larger organization. So we have a transactional email platform built into our AMS for some of those early renewal campaign messages. Then we have a regular broadcast email system. And now we have PropFuel. So I am working hand in hand with our communications and marketing team to make sure we have a global communications calendar. We know what's going when and in what platform, so that we are not hitting the same audience month after month after month with the same recruitment campaign. You've got to be super thoughtful and careful about your audience selection. So we are putting some guardrails around how we're using each platform, and I would recommend that as a best practice. And then my goal, we have not used this platform or this approach really for conference registrations. So we've got a small conference in January, but our next big one is next June. And I want to move conference promotions into this mindset and this approach.
Awesome. Meg, anything to add there?
Nope, Liz covered it all. We have been talking also about onboarding. You know, that's a big one to tackle, but we'll
get there. We will get there.
Yeah, and so to the I know earlier we were talking about points in time of trying something new. I think in addition to these more pointed campaigns, there's an opportunity to shift just ongoing general engagement into this approach, which is just general, even like, especially onboarding at the beginning, you can learn so much, even how members want to be communicated to, and how frequently. Those, you know, that's not a new idea, but I don't know that we're all doing it great. Like I remember struggling quite a bit with that. But beyond that, once you kind of understand their preferences, then just general reminders and engagement throughout the year are just as important. And asking questions is a great way to do that. Even if you don't have something with the end in mind. We have a client that asked simply, have you ever experienced a Title IX violation in your career? And so there was an open-ended opportunity for responses there. And there really wasn't a call to action. It was just share your story. And it's amazing to see what came through on that campaign and how significant the stories were. And some of them were going back to like the 1980s. And I guarantee you that some of them had never been asked this question before. And so for a membership organization to ask a question like that and to care about someone's career experience and something that happened to them is really important. And just little points like that throughout the year can make a huge difference in the perception of value as well, aside from a membership discount or whatever it is. So what questions do you have for Liz after this awesome story of success, or a couple of stories?
Liz, I'm seeing one in here asking, how many notices do you send immediately after a membership lapses? And then does your renewal campaign extend after the end date? So what are you currently doing for those?
This is a great question. So yes, we send, there are touch points after the membership lapses. So after expiration date, that's like a +5 days. They get a, hey, did you forget? And then there's one that's like 30 days after, you know, hey, really, you're about to lose benefits. We do have a grace period of 30 days that we've kept in place. So we send them a reminder right when they're about to see the lapse in benefits, and we leave it at that. We were doing an exit survey, but we've stopped that. As you all know, the responses to an exit survey are abysmal. So why keep doing the same thing when I can flavor in that question into other campaigns and get a sense for why members aren't renewing? Great question.
Another question I saw was asking if your membership is anniversary or annual. I believe isn't it anniversary?
It's anniversary. So we renew members every day. I wasn't here when we set it up. So we renew members 365. I would have aligned it to maybe the first day of the month or the last day, but it's every day.
Here's another really great question for you, Liz. How do they convince their executive director that we need to change our communication style? They support attorneys. He is an attorney, loves details, details, details.
So this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Is selling it internally. And I I would encourage you to try to mimic this approach with the tools that you have. That is one way you can do it. And write the traditional email that they're comfortable with, and then you rewrite it yourself and say, this is what it would look like. Because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here's the question I would ask. If they say yes, here's where I direct them. If they say maybe, here's where I direct them. And lay out what it would look like, because as I said, it took a minute for me to get this. So I wouldn't expect people to automatically understand what you're talking about. So lay it out for them, because you can mimic this approach with other tools, right? It's harder, but you can. And you could just present and walk the person through what it would look like and why you think it's going to resonate better. It's much more thoughtful approach.
Absolutely.
then-
Doing A/B tests on that as well. You could even do something
Yes.
similar, segment your lists. Yep.
Yeah, A/B test. And then the other thing is, especially for C-suite, especially for finance individuals in the organization and IT, really, the key is to demonstrate how this is going to show results, which obviously we have this example here in terms of membership and revenue, which is anything that you can do to say, this is where we think this is going to get us in terms of it's going to show up on the bottom line is always a good way to go as well. Let's see here. What about number of emails communication before membership lapses? Did you share that one already? Or no, before the membership lapses. How about what happens prior to the lapse?
So we start about 60 days in advance, just nurturing them to get their profile data correct. And then we hit them 3 times with emails before they are due to renew. And we still mail an invoice. Like, we still are invested in that postal mail system. Some of our members, they just respond to that. It's less and less. We're driving more to automatic renewal via credit card. But we do have a combination of email approaches and mailed approaches. Overall, it's about 7 touch points throughout the whole campaign. There's also a question about discounting. And y'all, this is controversial. When I came into AANP, I was not a big membership discounter. It was almost forbidden to talk about discounting membership. We need the revenue. I came into an existing situation where they offered a different discount every month. And not only for acquisition, they would offer them for renewal, which drove calls. It was all manual. It was a lot. So we got serious, the CEO and I, about rolling some of these discounts back. But with our members, it does resonate. And I would just be thoughtful in your approach of, it could be as little as 5% to entice. You need to find that sweet spot. But I would encourage you to entertain the idea of, what if we did try a discount, A/B test it to see if it resonates with your members.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Liz has said over and over how her members are frugal and on a deadline. So both of those things work well for them.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm just going to get us to the finish line here. I know Nicole needs a couple minutes at the end of the hour, but we have a full case study that covers, and it has a little bit, obviously write up on how all of these campaigns went. You can get your copy. We'll put it in the chat as well for you. It's not up on our website yet. So if you go look there, it's not there. It's just like hot off the press, as they say, or used to say. So it's a great read, doesn't take long to read, but very insightful. Thanks, Megan. And then also, if this approach is interesting to you and you want to learn more, we would love to talk with your organization. I would love to offer to you, if you want to just book a demo, we will waive setup fees on an eventual PropFuel contract if you decide to come on. So if you do that today, we'll do that, and we'll do that for you and your organization. Really, all the things we talked about today get covered in a call. More examples like this, and specifically related to the challenges that you're experiencing, and associations similar to yours in size and structure, and also kind of that serving members individually and also at scale, how that's done. We had a couple examples today, but we'll go over more of that. The uncovering of member needs, and then the reduction in email friction and the number of broadcasts. We covered that a lot today, but there are more examples of how organizations are doing that. And I put growth mindset here because that's really what we're talking about today, is just a different approach, having a growth instead of a fixed mindset, and thinking about what's possible instead of let's just keep doing the same thing then and hope that we get the same results. So I hope this was helpful to you today. If you want to put it in the chat what your biggest takeaway is in one word, we'd love to hear that. And I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole, and I'll leave our information on the screen in case you want to contact us.
Great. Thank you so much, ladies. That was so informative. I had one last question for everybody, and it's the same one, so we're going to skip it. But everybody, please do put in the chat what's your most important takeaway from today's webinar. As those answers come in, I've got some quick announcements. I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share just so you can see what I'm talking about. Bree, we can drop that info in the chat as well. One second. There we go. So Jobs of Tomorrow Season 2 is taking a deep dive into associations, and each week UST Education is highlighting an episode from the series. This week we are on episode, I believe, 9 in a 24 series, so tune in. To see what other great events we've got coming up, you can go to usteducation.org. And as a reminder, you can watch this and our other past webinars on demand in our media library. That's at media.usteducation.org, and I will put that link in the chat as well. Brianne, Meg, and Liz, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And as always, a huge thank you to everyone who attended. Did you ladies have any final words for us?
Don't be afraid to try something new.
Yes, and thank you all for the awesome conversation. I love these webinars because they're so much fun and there's so much dialogue and new ideas. So thank you. And like Liz said, I agree. Just try something new. Take a little leap.
I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Really quickly, as you are leaving the room, if you're still here, if you did need CPE, hi, I'm Kate. If you do need CPE CAE credit from this webinar today, thank you so much for your patience as we worked through a significant glitch last week. No one loves to send that email, but you all got it from me. So please make sure that if you needed CPE CAE credit, that is in the chat so I can issue you your credits. Thank you so much for being here today. From the 45 minutes that I caught, it was really stellar. So guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.